Hello everybody, welcome back to Wolfeei, because today we have a topic on our hands that is very important because it's something that I think is a thin line that needs to be correctly approached if you want to do an all-women Minecraft event. That's the topic of today. But before we get into that, substitute announcement, 5UP is subbing in for Jumper this upcoming Block Wars. Not this weekend, but the weekend after, 22nd of February, 2 p.m. Eastern. Go watch. 5UP fits super nicely on this team, knows everybody. I think actually technically works slightly better than Jumper on the team, but whatever, doesn't really matter, right? The reaon why I'm now making this video topic is because this was going to be the second ever all women team in Block Wars, and I think that's something that's pretty important. I think that's something that's really nice to pull off when possible. Not something I want to force to do. I didn't. This was just coincidentally with signups and team making and stuff. I was like, this works. So and I want to do more all women teams or something along those lines, because I just think it's a good thing to have every now and then. It's good representation, just a nice vibe, etc. And it's just good. There's no negatives to it, in my opinion. All right, I think it's a net positive to run that when possible, because you see a bunch of all-dude teams all the time, and that's kind of just never notable. You see an all-women team, you're like, oh my god, an all-women team, which kind of implies, hey, something's up here. Why is an all-women team so special, but an all-dudes team is the most normal thing you ever see, right? So you can have an argument about why that might be. I know why, of course, but yeah. Either way, like mentioned, it's not the end of the world that this happened, because we have already had an all-women team in the past, which was in Rookies 2 about a year ago, consisting of Nesba, Gumi, Hannah, Kara, and Emram on the Purple Pelicans at the time, which went well. I think they placed mid. Yeah, they placed around the middle of the board. This Rookies was decent in terms of balancing. Yeah, they played well. So cool team. I got outfragged by Gumi on her first event. Hey, that's pretty good. We're gonna ignore that my team was absolutely horrible, but pretty good, right? Anyways, for any of you who may be a little bit newer to Wolfeei Mogul Mail, etc., you might think that this is something that I haven't talked about before, but coincidentally, I have. What? Crazy. I did it twice, actually, in the past. Once in Daily December 2022, which was the first Daily December. This is a video idea I had laying around that just fit for Daily December 2022. And it went fine, I think. If we just click here and just look at the teams I made, it's probably very outdated. I also clearly, as I can tell, made about how many teams is that? 30? Yeah, something like that. Definitely a little outdated. Some of the picks on this are interesting. Some of the combos on this are interesting. I think some of the people I even put in don't identify as women, which I tried my best to avoid that again this time, which is one of the fine lines that comes up with this, and we'll talk about it in a little bit as well, because I've talked to some people internally about this type of event and gotten interesting opinions about it. However, look at the teams, see what you may like or may not like, and we're moving on. Because I did it again. I did it again in September, actually, of 2023. So not for Daily December, but just at another moment. So yeah, we have another all-women video on our hands here, in which the team set I made was as follows, which I think at this point the Block Wars roster had a bit more development in it, so there's probably a higher level of understanding of who maybe works together a little bit, and maybe also just more options, really, in terms of who can be included, right? Will say, this roster, slightly better, but doesn't really make a lot of sense still. Some of it makes sense. There's actually a repeat team in here that I just noticed. There's actually almost 2 repeat teams in here, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Interesting. But before we get into the actual teams, another thing that I think is important to mention is that a hypothetical all-women event is great. And I've talked about it regarding MCC twice. However, it already happened at some point for an event called Minecraft Mania, something that I know a lot of you have asked me to talk about at some point. And this event to my knowledge, please correct me if I'm wrong, went over okay, not great. It was interesting. From talking to people internally, I'm fairly sure that Minecraft Mania, calling it a women event or whatever, the assumption for a lot of people was that it was going to be all like fully women. In the wiki here, I can see that it says this event only consists of players who identify as woman or gender fluid, and etc., etc., etc. That's one of the main issues, difficulties, etc. with this type of event. I think it's really good, similar to how like a Pride event, could have the same approach. Really good to make a roster that fully only represents the type of representation that you think is important. Women in Minecraft events, super important, right? However, you're threading a thin thin line because of how gender identity and other types of how people perceive themselves, what they want to identify as, etc. How that works and how much there is behind that. If I'm being completely honest, I am for sure not the most educated person on gender identity, etc. However, I have a decent understanding, and I also know that you gotta be careful. That's why this one and this one, I don't think were necessarily the best rosters. This one more so because this was before I really had a better understanding of how things worked, and as mentioned, I think I included some people that technically shouldn't be included, or they probably wouldn't be against being included necessarily, but they might not identify as women, and then I kind of just said, hey, you're in the women event, which I understand is not the greatest thing to do. So when making the teams for this video, I really tried my best to remember what not to do and what to do, in which this is the result. I think if you want to reach this goal of an all-women roster, the best way to do it is to just merge rosters between Black Wars and MCC. MCC has way more of the Minecrafter-related Minecraft people, obviously, and Black Wars has more of the variety-related people. Although, I mean, a lot of the OTV and Friends type of players are only in MCC. However, hereby I will talk about the teams and I'll just go over them. If I accidentally included someone who is not does not identify as a woman, I genuinely apologize. Did not mean it. Sorry. That's all I can really say. Sorry. So, anyways, let's continue. First off, Hermit Gals. This is a repeat team from this time. Didn't know that, by the way. This Lime team over here, that's the same here. Same team on Red. It just makes sense. It's like, I think pretty much every woman on Hermitcraft. I could be wrong. I might be missing a couple. I don't know the whole Hermitcraft roster, but it just makes sense, right? Would be a good team. Next up, you have Rats. They're Rats. They're on Rats SMP. Should be a pretty good team for Rats. Next up, you have Rats. They're on Rats SMP. Should be a good team for Rats. I think this team is almost a duplicate team. Kind of. There's duplicate combos, right? This orange team here is a Rats team. I've just essentially split some of the players around. Grace was included here as well. There's some other probably like combos that are somewhat reminiscent of what's on the board here. Lime team, there's not really a theme behind it. It's just like Black Wars players, MCC players, kind of together. Like Gucky, I would say, is more an MCC player. Misty plays in both. Maddie is more a Black Wars player. Emram is exclusively a Black Wars player. So it's kind of a mix. Green is like a big, what's it called? OTV and Friends type of team. I initially had Jody over here on this team, but then I realized, wait, Janet should be in this roster. I've been hyping up Janet as an MCC player for like months, and I can't just not include her, right? So there you go. Then we have some like full Black Wars teams as well, or mostly Black Wars teams, with the Cyan team being like a VTuber squad, which actually surprisingly maybe is not too bad. It's definitely like almost balanced, because you have like Rattles and May who are pretty solid, I think, at the game. Just Giga and Mouse, I think, would be a little bit behind, but maybe they can get a grasp of MCC very quickly. I don't know. Maybe they got the gamer genes. Then you have Lifesteal mostly because I can't just put Mid Mystic, who I think is down here, on the team with Jumper, Squiddo, and Caboodle because they would just win. I think this one still might be a little strong, but it's definitely closer to balanced, considering that two of these people have never played, and then Squiddo only played in the easiest Rising of all time, and then Sasha, I guess, is just a nice person to put on a team. Didn't really know who else made more sense necessarily, so that's there you go. Then blue is like a MCC Block Wars crossover. I'd say Haley nowadays is literally 50-50 between both rosters. Elena is an MCC player, and then Rain and Deme, of course, iconic players from Block Wars. So there you go. Should be a fun combo as well. Here's a full Block Wars team again with SK, Gumi. Well, Gumi is more of an MCC player, but still plays Block Wars. So SK, Gumi, Doki, and Jess, I think, should be a fun one as well. And then finally, you have a grand old team here of Hannah, Tina, Lily, and Pokey. I think this roster would be fine. Sure, there's probably improvements you could make. Sure, having a crossover event might not be how things would be approached. Sure, adding newcomers might not be the best thing. Whatever. It doesn't really matter, right? Because this is a hypothetical event. Either way, let me know your thoughts on an all-women Minecraft event in general. If you watched my Minecraft Mania Women History Month event, how did it go? And would you agree that it wasn't the best, or maybe you think it was great, or whatever in between, or maybe you're like, you know what, I think this event, it would be much better if it was like this, or maybe you say no, it shouldn't happen. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts either way. Also, again, 5 up subbed for Jumper. That's the whole reason I was inspired to make this video again. So thank you for watching. I'll see you later. Goodbye.